I'm going to talk to you today about what's going on at the Justice Department is the topic of my talk. And of course, if you tune into Fox News on any given day, that seems to be the lead story, it seems. So I'm going to talk a little bit about that. Many of you have been asking me this weekend what's going on at the Justice Department, and I told you wait till Sunday and we'll cover it in great detail. When I was at the Justice Department, I learned that the Justice Department has so much power over so many things. I mean, if you've been to the pool, you've seen the chair that goes in and out of the pool. That's a Justice Department mandate. Civil rights, elections, on and on. It is the fulcrum upon which Obama and Holder initiated a radical transformation of the country. Everything went through the Justice Department, and that's why it's so important. And when Holder dismissed my new Black Panther case in 2009, a few months after they were sworn in, those of us who were working at the department began to see this radical transformation taking place, just starting at the time. And you didn't think it was possible, right? You didn't think that, okay, the men with billy clubs in front of a pole, and you bring a case and the case is dismissed, but you also didn't think they would keep going. And frankly, the new Black Panther case, with the benefit of hindsight, was just the beginning of a radicalized transformation of, frankly, the United States. Holder and Obama institutionalized this radicalism at the Justice Department. They made it not radicalism to the people who work there. To the people who work there, my colleagues, this was simply this new enlightened way of thinking. It was progressivism meets power. And that's what you saw over the course of 8 years. They turned the law into a relativist, racialist radicalism. And that's what we saw time after time after time. Now, I'm here to tell you about what's happening now. What has happened in the last, 10 months since the inauguration? And it's a mixed bag, and we'll go over some good things that are going on and some bad things that are going on still. But first, the good news. I put at the top of the list the fact that Eric Holder's war on cops is over. It's done. Those of you who have read my book, it's like listening to a Louis Gohmert talk, which is very hard to follow, by the way. There are so many fanciful, farcical things that are totally true that you can't believe it's actually happening. And it gives you an insight into how nuts some of these people were. Well, for example, when I was at the Justice Department under Obama, they actually hired an organization at Northeastern University to do police sensitivity training. Now, I'm not done with this. One of the consultants working on for this organization to do police sensitivity training, and by the way, they charged you, the taxpayers, $1 million to produce these materials. One of the women who worked for this organization was Angela Davis. Do you remember this? I mean, and of course, Angela Davis is the communist who probably was involved in the murder of a judge in California. But this is the sort of world we lived in under Eric Holder, where federal tax money was moving to an organization that has as part of its staff Angela Davis to train police officers. That's the world we've left under President Obama. Another good thing that has happened since the inauguration, sue and settle is over. What do I mean by sue and settle? This is just, you guys got to give the progressives credit. They're geniuses when it comes to leveraging power. What Obama instituted was a series of lawsuits at DOJ against, for example, financial services companies for red line mortgaging or other housing firms for discrimination in mortgage lending. And they would extract these gigantic settlements out of these corporations. And they would require the corporations to set aside millions of dollars for a slush fund that would then be used by progressive organizations. Just think about that. They would leverage federal power to fuel their far left allies. And that's what they did for 8 years. And Jeff Sessions ended it, immediately terminated the program. So sue and settle's over, good. Unlike the new Black Panthers, the Justice Department has begun to protect the civil rights of all Americans. They don't look at the race of the victim anymore to decide whether to protect civil rights. And one of the things that Jeff Sessions is going to do, and has already initiated, is to begin to look at discriminatory college admission policies. What do I mean by that? Well, some of you already know. What the Justice Department is looking at is colleges that receive federal money giving you a spot in college on the basis of race. Now, some of us have just grown totally accustomed to this, right? This is just how they do it now at elite universities. But you know what? If you're an Asian parent and have a child who is Asian, they're being discriminated against to get into Harvard. That's a fact. And so the Justice Department has begun to look at discriminatory implementation of admissions policies, which of course is going to send the left crazy, right? This is how they fuel university radicalism, is by making it all about race. They're also begun to defend election integrity instead of attack it. Remember, during Holder, they attacked Texas voter ID, which is near and dear to me at my organization, which we litigate voter integrity around the country. They have begun to scale back all of these Holder-Obama attacks on clean voter rolls, voter ID, all of these important implementations of policies to keep our elections clean. The voter rolls right now have 4 million ineligible names on it. There are non-citizens on the rolls. My organization is called the Public Interest Legal Foundation. We litigate cases to get rolls clean to help defend election integrity. We have found in Virginia alone, of aliens who self-reported they are aliens. In other words, they raised their hand, they said, I'm on the voter rolls and I'm not a citizen. Found 5,000 of those, just in Virginia. Where this past month, we had an election where control of the Virginia House is being decided by about 100 votes. So that's what happens when you have corrupt voter rolls. We just got done with a trial in Broward County, Florida, in federal court against Broward County because they have more people on the voter rolls than they have people alive, right? Which, by the way, 250 other counties in the country do. And I just did depositions last week in McAllen, Texas. Anybody ever been to McAllen? It's out there, isn't it? And the same thing there. There are about 115% of people eligible on the rolls in McAllen, Texas. It's happening all over the country. Well, at this trial in Broward County, we've heard a lot about George Soros this weekend. At the trial in Broward County, Soros intervened in my case to help defend the dirty voter rolls. Okay, they hired these lawyers from a firm called Jenner Block, from an organization called Demos, all these put an N at the end, right? Demons, and the Advancement Project, Project Vote, all these Soros organizations. There were not enough seats in the federal courtroom for all of the Soros lawyers opposing us. There were 12. The bailiff had to bring in more seats at counsel table because there were so many Soros lawyers. That's the world that Obama helped create. But as I said, there's good news. But there's also bad news at the Justice Department, and if you've been watching the news, you know this. Because what's happening at the Justice Department is threatening the very results of last year's elections. And you heard that all weekend long from Steve Bannon, from Sebastian Gorka yesterday. So let's talk about some of the bad news. One of the things people have asked me this weekend, and Louis just mentioned it, is why is this not getting fixed? Why is this still happening? A lot of people thought the president could come in on day one and snap his fingers and say, you're fired. I wish he could. But unfortunately, one of the things that's bad is there is a massive left-wing civil service. And I don't just mean Democrat. I mean hardcore left-wing. I worked with these folks. I know what they were like. These weren't just sort of like Clinton, and I mean Bill, Clinton Democrats. These are like Shea Democrats. Okay? So these people are still all throughout the government. They're the people who do the factual analysis on cases, the initial legal analysis, and so when it gets up to the new Trump people, it's already full of lies. It's already full of half-truths. And so I've talked to people in the political branches that Trump put there, they can't even trust the civil service. They can't do a lot of the things you folks want them to do at Justice because they have no one they can trust to do the work. Now you say, can't you just fire them? Answer, no, you can't. they're civil service lawyers, and they're all through the government. Louis mentioned in his talk about all of these Obama political people that after the inauguration or after the election got embedded downward. The opposite happened also. And all throughout the Justice Department after the election, a lot of career civil service people got embedded upward into political branch layer offices. Acting Deputy Assistant Attorney General of Civil Rights. I've written about these people. These are radical leftists who are promoted upward into the political layer. So they're spies now. They listen in on all the political discussions. And these people are still there. I'll give you a name. Alberto Ruiz-Sanchez. I used to work with Alberto at the voting section. He is now a political appointee, technically, under the Trump administration. He's a radical leftist. So he needs to be sent back down along with all of the other ones who were promoted right after the election. Thank you. There's two more problems at DOJ. The first one is also our own fault, or I should say, our side's fault. After the election, a lot of institutionalists, and that's a word that I use on Fox all the time, they aren't Democrats, but they're institutionalists. And these institutionalists were put in positions of power primarily to run the transition team. And so from November to the inauguration, there was a lot of institutionalists at justice. Have you guys heard the name Rod Rosenstein? Right. Rod Rosenstein, and I'll get to him in a minute, was put in that position. A lot of people say, why on earth was Rod Rosenstein appointed the #2 guy at the Justice Department? And the answer is that the institutionalists who were in charge of the transition picked people like Rod. They picked other people to staff the highest levels of the department who were not so much concerned about the swamp. They're kind of more concerned about staying above the fray. You guys know the type. They don't usually come and talk this weekend, right? They wouldn't get invited. As a matter of fact, they're talked about. Congressman Gomer talked about them. But the problem is that they were appointed at high levels, which takes us to my last comment, and that is the special counsel. The special counsel, Bob Mueller, is an absolute out-of-control crusade to wreck the presidential election of last year. Period. Who did he turn to staff his prosecutorial unit? Institutionalists and Democrats. You can look at the roll call of people involved in that investigation, and down to a Nat's Fanny, they are the relics of the Obama age. And now they have this enormous power. I just got a call from a campaign staffer from the Trump campaign last week looking for a lawyer, because now they're burrowing into the campaign and their investigation. What were you doing for all of these nefarious foreign interests? They're unhinged and out of control. And why are they unhinged and out of control? Cycle back because of Rod Rosenstein. Rod Rosenstein, the Deputy Attorney General, the #2 guy at Justice. Remember when Sessions recused himself? Rod Rosenstein became effectively the Attorney General of the United States for the special counsel. And Rod Rosenstein will not get this under control because Rod Rosenstein is mostly concerned about Rod Rosenstein and not the future of the United States. And not the president, for sure. So what you have now at the Justice Department is a lot of good news. The worst radicalism of the Holder era has been shut off. But like you heard over and over and over again this weekend, Seb Gorka said it yesterday, all we did is prevent the car from going off the cliff. And unfortunately, the fight continues. You have to be ever vigilant because we still have not mastered the bureaucracy. We still aren't over the hill yet. Right? And we aren't on the downhill side. Because these people, frankly, ranging from moderates to frank all-out communists who work at the department, are not giving this up. This is a theology to these people. You have to understand that. The people who think they're going to transform the world using the power of law and your tax dollars to do it. And they aren't giving up easily. And the fight of the next 4 years is going to be, or 3 now, can you defeat and hold off the special counsel from destroying the presidency? And make no mistake, that's what that's about. It's about destroying the president. and totally stopping your revolution. That's what the special counsel is there for. So will that continue? Will the results of the election be treated as legitimate by these bureaucrats, by the media, by the country? Unfortunately, that's the central fight that exists at the Justice Department. So what's going on? A lot at the Justice Department. Sessions is exactly the right guy. And I'm telling you that, I hear that question more than anything else. I was on with Judge Jeanine 2 weeks ago. I don't know, some of you saw that. Every time I go on her show, she wants to run down Sessions. And I keep telling her, he's the right guy. And boy, you don't want to tell her that off the air because she sounds differently than she does on the air. And Milo used up all the profanity quotient yesterday, so I'm not going to tell you what it said. So the point is that Sessions is the right guy. When you hear things like put Rudy in place, right? I've heard that a lot. Well, Rudy would do a better job. I see it on Twitter, I see it in other places. That is sort of the moderate institutionalist answer to Jeff Sessions. So don't buy it. Sessions gets it. It is very difficult to navigate through this swamp. And he's just getting started, so he needs everybody's support. So thank you all very much for being here. And thank you for your time. Thanks a lot.